Hey everybody, welcome back to Courtside with Beilinson Tennis, part of the Tennis Channel Podcast Network. We are back on with my co-host tonight and Hall of Famer to talk all things Miami Open, Steve Flink. Welcome back. How you doing?
I'm doing great, David. Glad to be back with you again, and I'm glad that you have survived your second vaccine rather well so far.
Yeah, so far so good. So we got a few hours to go, but yeah, so far so good. Hey, before we get into Miami, I want to tell the listeners, Steve and I have a very special treat coming up for all of you a week from Monday, which will be April 12th, Monday evening, April 12th. One of the most funny and enjoyable conversations I've had talking tennis. So special guest, Steve, myself, and someone we know you're all going to enjoy. So remember, a week from Monday. Monday evening, April 12th. So make sure to tune in for that. Okay, Miami. Let's start from the beginning because there was something that was truly eye-opening to everybody at the very beginning of this tournament, and that was Vasek Pospisil and his, like, from my point of view, totally out of character tirade regarding Andrea Gaudenzi. As far as I know, Vasek has always seemed very friendly, very personable. Him and Bethany Maddox Sands did that really great Tennis United series during COVID, during the pause. And just a great, funny guy. And he just absolutely lost it. There was something obviously going on behind the scenes. Andrea Gaudenzi, again, the new ATP chairman, by all accounts, he seems to be doing some good things. That was just a little crazy. What do you think when you saw that, Steve?
Well, David, reading between the lines, I get the feeling that perhaps Gaudenzi was a little defensive. They're both good guys. There's no doubt about that. But I have the feeling he might have been a bit defensive because, as you correctly summed up, Pospisil, this is not his normal way of conducting himself. You know, he's a very congenial guy, very competitive on the court for sure. But he clearly was feeling some kind of angst over this and frustration. And obviously it all has to do with starting him being aligned with Djokovic and hoping to sort of start a new player union. I understand from Gaudenzi's standpoint, you step into that job and you're the head of the ATP and you don't want to think about any of these other alternatives or options, but something obviously went very wrong in the meeting. And I hope that it will just blow over and they can move on and find a way to reestablish a dialogue.
Yeah, agree 100%. So stay tuned on how that all goes going forward. Want to mention another player that to me recently, I'm a huge fan of, but recently he has had he has had a lot of trouble winning big matches against his peers, and that's Karen Khachanov. And I looked at who he beat when he won the 2018 Paris Masters, when he went on that run, and he beat Sasha Zverev in the quarters, Dominic Thiem in the semis, and Novak Djokovic in the final. So he has it in him to beat the top guys. But since that run, and I remember him playing Rafa in the 2018 U.S. Open third round, such a physical battle. I was so impressed with Khachanov. I'm like, this guy is going to be tough. He's going to be a tough out. He has struggled against his peers. You think it's something specific or just time and he'll get over the hump?
I fully understand your concerns, David, and those are totally valid points because he did lead us to believe back at that Paris indoor in 18. That was a string of spectacular wins, perhaps well-timed, caught them at the right time. You know, in Djokovic had come off a very long, emotional 3-set win or final set tiebreak win over Federer the day before, and he was a little fragile physically. You could look at some of these circumstances and say, okay, that's why it happened. But like you, I had high hopes for him, but I still do. Because if you look at some of these losses, like for instance, this week against Sinner, a great match. He wins the first set. It all sort of hinged on the second set tiebreak. Sinner won the tiebreak and eventually won in 3. But Khachanov competed well to the end. Earlier in the year, he had another tight loss to Sinner. He also had a loss to Berrettini at the Australian, 6-6 and 6. Yeah. So when I look at the scores of his matches, and many of which I have seen, I'm not discouraged, David. I think we may see him sort of reassert himself and start making a move toward the top 10 instead of lingering just outside the top 20 where he is now. Because I don't see a guy that is throwing the towel in these losses. I to see someone who's fighting hard, who has a lot of talent. Round of 16 at the French last year and lost to Djokovic. Pretty good effort. And then one of these days, I think we'll see him start registering some more big wins, because I think he's too good not to.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And for me, it was never a question of competing. It was just he keeps playing his peers, and he just comes up a tiny, tiny
True.
bit short. But
Oh, that's absolutely right. But I think some of these matches are going to start going his way too. And I didn't think that he lost it with Sinner this week. Sinner just beat him, and that's another reason I'm not discouraged on his behalf. I think we'll see him turn the corner again.
turning the corner is a youngster that if it's a stock right now, we're all buyers of, and that is Sebastian Corda, because he is just continuing to have such a steep upward climb. Beats Fabio Fognini, beats top 10 Diego Schwartzman, reaching the quarters. In Diego, he served for the match at 5-4, got broken, regrouped, broke Diego back, and then served it out cleanly. He got to the finals in Del Rey. He did great again here in Miami. Cool, calm, and collective. Yeah, I know you're a huge fan. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I loved what we saw from him at the start of the year in the final in Del Rey, and then to see him put it together as well as he did this past week. And I think now he sounds different to me now. Now it's like, okay, I know I can play with these top guys. And why wouldn't he say that? He played quite well in his loss to Rublev, and they could have won either set. It was really a tight 2-setter and close tiebreak to end it. So I think he's just so natural, David. He's got so much good all around ability, and he's got the right genes from his father, look at that. These sisters are great pro golfers. And his temperament. What I love about him is his temperament. His dad was a bit more on edge. He was a little more mercurial, and you didn't quite know what you're going to get from his dad on a given day. And sometimes he could lose a little bit emotionally. I think he'd be the first to admit that mental toughness was maybe not his strength, but boy, Sebastian has got it. And boy, does he ever have it in abundance. So I'm very excited about where he's headed the rest of this year.
And if you're a parent of an athlete, of one kid or several kids, try to give Peter Corder and his wife a call, because my God, whatever they're doing something right. Now, if Sebastian loves Florida, he would be number 2 on the list, because the other guy who loves Florida is the winner of this tournament, and that's Hubert Hurkacz. I mean, my God, I think I tallied them up. They both, Sebastian didn't have a bye in Del Rey. So I think they both had 4 wins in Del Rey. Hurkacz beat Corda in the final there. Hurkacz had 6 wins because he had a bye in Miami. Corda had 4 wins. So those are the top 2. I mean, they should play every single tournament in Florida. Beat Tsitsipas in the quarters, where really he had no business winning that match. I mean, Tsitsipas was in total control of that. Up a set, up 2-0. Got through that. Today was clean. He got a little tight. It was 7-6, 4-0. He got tight, which again, Masters 1000 title, biggest title of his career. He could get a little tight. A good stat by our good friend Pete Holterman said Hurkacz, the second player to reach Del Rey and Miami Open in the same season. At that time in 2001, it was Jan Michael Gamble. It's called the Ericsson Open at that time. But fun stat there. I mean, this guy, he loves Florida, huh?
He does. And he did such a great job, because he got out of a 3rd set tiebreak against Raonic early in the tournament. That was one of the keys. He kept going. And then he said by the time, and you mentioned, of course, the match against Stefanos was one of the keys, because it was not only a set and 2 love, but 15-40 for a second break. So he almost was out of there, and he survived. And then by the time he got to Rublev in the semis, he believed. He kind of admitted after the final today, he wasn't looking ahead. On the other hand, he did sort of sense the possibility of winning the tournament by then. Beat Rublev in straight, and then, as you said today, up a set in 4-11, then held on. However, he did a great job to salvage the first set, David, because Sinner served for it at 6-5. Sinner had come back from 3-love down, and then he eventually served for the set at 6-5. If Sinner holds there, it might have been a completely different match. But that's where the turnaround came for the Polish player, and he really, what a job he did from there. And then held his nerve nicely after one of his breaks got away in the second set and managed to close it out in straight. Terrific effort.
I mean, he definitely earned it because his draw was absolutely brutal. I mean, this was not something where he just played a bunch of low, he got lucky and played a bunch of guys lower ranked than him. He had a
But
brutal
Dave,
draw.
very briefly about today. What I loved about today was the first set, it was all about his defense, and he let Sinner sort of self-destruct, and he really defended beautifully. And then in the second set, especially on his way to 4-love, he sort of opened up his wings a bit, got much more aggressive. I like the versatility and flexibility in his game, that he can win more than one way and adapt his game and then start hitting more freely when he has a lead. So it'd be very interesting to see now that he moves into the top 20, what he's going to be able to do with this. But this is an enormous confidence boost for him to win a Masters 1000.
Huge. And yeah, that first set, I know what you're talking about. He had a number of times he was stretched out wide on his backhand side. He'd do open stance backhands and he'd get it back with some pace and, more importantly, deep. So several times. Very good
Yeah,
job.
He frustrated him with not only the open stance backhands, but also wide on the forehand, same deal, deep down the middle, extend the point, prolong the rally. And that definitely was frustrating for Sinner on a day when the wind was swirling and where he didn't have his best stuff. So he started overhitting, he started pressing, but all credit to his opponent for really provoking that from Sinner.
For sure, for sure. Let's switch it over to the ladies' side, and I feel like everybody got cheated in the women's final between Bianca Andreescu and Ash Barty, because I know everybody, including you and I, were very, very excited to see both those people match up. I want to talk about Bianca a little bit because just kind of a funny story to me. I went to the University of Kansas, and in 2018, the fall of 2018, Bianca played in a 25K in Lawrence, and she lost in the quarters. Now, who she lost to was also a very good player, is Katie McNally. But just think about that. November of 2018, she's playing in a 25K on a college campus, and then 10 months later, she had that run in New York, beating Serena Williams in the final, taking the U.S. Open title. I mean, that lady, crazy.
Oh, it was crazy. In between, of course, she took that big step by beating Kerber to win out in Indian Wells. Then Canada that summer, she was playing Serena in the final. Serena had to retire. Bianca handled it beautifully by kind of consoling a very distraught Serena after the match ended so abruptly in the first set. So you really have to admire. And then now she disappeared after winning the Open. I mean, she couldn't play, one injury after another. Then to survive these taxing matches, one after another this week, and keep going, especially impressive in beating Muguruza, but also a Sakari, where Sakari served for the match at 6-5 in the third, and Bianca survived. But I thought Ash Barty, David, was just first rate. Forget the injury of Bianca. I think Ash was playing too well, regardless of whether Bianca came out there too depleted and then hurt herself at a set and 2-love down and eventually retired at 4-love down. Ash Barty really peaked for that match, and her variety confounded Bianca, who gave her great credit for it after the match.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on Ash. Just a couple other tidbits on Bianca. I mean, like you said, going from playing a 25K in Lawrence, Kansas, then winning Indian Wells, Canada, and then the U.S. Open. I mean, it's just it's a crazy rise. The other match I wanted to talk about with Bianca was Sarah Sorbi's Tormo, which, I would say the two matches previously with Amanda Anisimova and Muguruza was like the highlight reel type matches. The one against Tormo, I mean, that was just gut check time. That is not a fun opponent to play. That's one of those opponents, I think I put on Twitter, like, that's one of those you walk off the court and say, and if you lose, you're like, I never want to play this game again. And
absolutely right. And I poor Bianca, you had to feel for her, having to hit so many balls above her shoulders on the backhand side. You could feel the pain every time she made contact with the ball. That's as uncomfortable an opponent as you can possibly play. And yet that was another example of Bianca's mental toughness, the way she found a way through that. And it was exasperating for her at times. Yet she got the job done.
She has a plan A, she has a plan B, she has a plan C, and not many players can do that. Many players may want to do that, but not everybody can do that. And she's definitely one of those that can.
David, sorry to interrupt. Let's just hope she can now play consistently with relatively few injuries, because if that's the case, we're going to see her right back contending again for majors, and clearly, establishing a place for herself right up at the top there, alongside the likes of Ash Barty and Naomi Osaka.
Yeah. And again, to kind of reiterate what you said about Ash, definitely. I mean, she showed why she's the world number one. I mean, and I mean, those two are so versatile too. And it was fun to watch. And I was really excited to watch it on Saturday. And I just felt the tennis world got cheated a little bit. The outcome may have been the same. I'm not saying it would be different, but it would have been fun to watch, a healthy Ash Barty versus a healthy Bianca Andreescu.
No
But
doubt.
I have a feeling we will be seeing those two matchups in the future, hopefully.
Oh, we will. And I was sort of hoping that Bianca would find it within herself to finish those last couple of games. Only she can know what she was feeling, the pain she had at that point. I think it was just too bad for the fans. On the other hand, when it was over, Andreescu couldn't have been more sporting and gracious. So that was terrific. Rather than go on about her physical woes, she was much more interested in telling you how good Ash Barty is.
100%, 100%. It's during March Madness. We're in the Final Four weekend when we're recording this. This is going to be released Monday night, championship game. I want to tie a couple quick tidbits in with college basketball, how it's tied into tennis. A big time coach retired this past week, and that's North Carolina head basketball coach Roy Williams. I mean, he was 15 years. He had 33 years. I think it was 15 at KU and 18 at North Carolina. Him and his wife have given gifts to that school several times. And Will Blumberg, who's one of the top collegiate players in the country, plays at North Carolina. He tweeted a photo of him and Coach Williams. Coach Williams and his wife gave a gift that basically allowed all fifth-year athletes, fifth-year seniors, to play on scholarship again when COVID made that pause and NCAA allowed fifth year. So shout out Roy Williams. I mean, it's just not him and his basketball program that he cares about. That was huge. And I know you're a big New York Yankee fan, as my father is. And to end his press conference, he gave the famous Lou Gehrig quote, "I feel like the luckiest person on earth." So shout out Coach Roy Williams.
Absolutely.
Another funny tidbit that I just found out, shout out Jason King, who's a big college basketball analyst, and he's a Baylor alum. He said Scott Drew and Mark Few, those guys are playing when this is released. It will be Monday night, the championship game. They have been pickleball partners in the bubble in Indianapolis. So I don't know if they're going to still be pickleball partners Saturday night, Sunday night, and Monday maybe afternoon. I doubt Monday afternoon, but just a funny tidbit there. So I wanted to tie March Madness into our tennis content. And then with that, again, Steve Flink, Pete Sampras, Greatness Revisited. Go get the book. Fantastic book. I loved it. Everybody who's read it loved it. And last but not least, special treat coming next week, a week from Monday, April 12th, will be released in the evening. Steve, myself, and you're not going to want to miss this third guest. It was so fun. So tune into that. Steve, as always, thanks again, man. This is so much fun to do this with you.
Yeah, David, thanks a lot for having me back on again. And I look forward to our next session. It's always enjoyable.
On to the clay we go. On to the clay we go, right?
Absolutely.
See you soon.
Okay, good, David.